The fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of trapped flies, their harsh glow leaching the color from everything beneath them. Dr. Bennett's gloves snapped against her wrists as she pulled them tight, the sound sharp as a guillotine's blade. Atlas, the German shepherd, lay motionless on the steel exam table, his ribs rising and falling in shallow, labored hitches. His once glossy black and tan coat was patchy now, dulled by illness, his muscles wasted away until his skeleton pressed against his skin like something trying to escape. Mia's fingers curled into the fabric of her sweater, her nails biting into her palms. She could smell the antiseptic, the sterile tang of alcohol wipes, the faint metallic scent of blood from the IV port in Atlas's leg. It made her stomach twist. Dr. Bennett pressed 2 fingers against Atlas's gums, peeling them back. The tissue was ghost white. No pink. No life. "His body is destroying its own blood," she said, her voice clipped, professional. She turned to the light box on the wall and slapped up an X-ray. Mia's breath caught. The image was a nightmare. Where there should have been clean, dark spaces, healthy lungs filled with air, there were instead jagged, swirling clouds like shattered glass suspended in his chest. "See this?" Dr. Bennett tapped the film with the tip of her pen. The sound was too loud in the quiet room. "Fluid. His immune system is attacking his red blood cells, and now his lungs are filling up. He's drowning from the inside." Mia's vision blurred. She reached out blindly, her hand finding Atlas's paw. His pads were rough, cracked. She remembered the first time she'd held that paw, 6 months ago in a Walmart parking lot, when he'd been abandoned in a crate, with nothing but a note taped to the bars. "Please help him." Now his claws twitched weakly against her fingers. Ethan stood rigid beside her, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. His voice, when he finally spoke, was raw. "There's nothing you can do?" Dr. Bennett exhaled through her nose. She reached for a clipboard, flipped a page. The click of the euthanasia consent form being slid across the counter echoed like a gun being cocked. "We can make him comfortable," she said. "But if we don't euthanize him tonight, he'll suffocate." Slowly. Mia's throat closed. She could already see it. Attal's gasping, his body jerking as his lungs failed, his eyes wide and terrified as he fought for air. "What if we refuse?" Ethan's voice cracked on the last word. Dr. Bennett paused. For the first time her professional mask slipped, just a fraction. Her eyes flicked to Atlas, his sunken flanks, his cloudy eyes, then back to them. "There's an experimental treatment," she said slowly. "At Cornell's Veterinary Research Hospital. It's a long shot, and it's expensive. But even if you could get him there..." She glanced at the clock. "It's a 6-hour drive. In his condition?" She shook her head. "He won't survive the trip." A pager beeped on her hip, sharp and sudden. She silenced it with a practiced flick of her thumb. "If you don't euthanize him here," she said gently, "you'll be saying your goodbyes in the car." Mia's knees threatened to buckle. She pressed her forehead against Atlas's, breathing in the scent of him. Warm fur, the faint musk of sickness, the lingering traces of the lavender shampoo she'd used on him last week. His nose was dry. Too dry. Ethan's hand settled on her shoulder, squeezing hard. She could feel the tremor in his grip. "We're not putting him down," he said, low and fierce. Dr. Bennett's mouth tightened. She nodded once, then turned to the cabinet behind her, pulling out a vial of clear liquid and a syringe. "This will help with the fluid in his lungs," she said, handing it to Mia. "It'll buy you a little time. Not much." Mia took it, her fingers numb. Atlas whimpered then, a soft, broken sound. His tail gave a single, feeble thump against the table. Like he knew. Like he was telling them it was okay. Ethan's breath left him in a rush. He bent, pressing his lips to the crown of Atlas's head. "We're not giving up on you," he whispered. Mia swiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand. She looked at Dr. Bennett. How long? The vet's gaze was pitying. If you leave now, maybe sunrise. The clock on the wall ticked. Mia swallowed. Then we'd better go. The rain came down in slanted knives, slashing against the windshield faster than the wipers could fight it. The Jeep's headlights cut through the darkness like two weak torches, illuminating only a few feet of slick asphalt before the black swallowed everything again. Atlas lay curled in the back seat, cocooned in Ethan's old college hoodie, the navy blue one with the torn pocket from when Atlas, as a puppy, had mistaken it for a chew toy. Now the fabric was damp with sweat and rain, clinging to his shivering frame. His breathing was a wet, uneven rattle, each inhale sounding like someone dragging a stick through thick mud. Mia twisted in the passenger seat, her seatbelt cutting into her collarbone. She pressed her palm against Atlas's side, feeling the rapid, fluttering beat of his heart beneath his ribs. Too fast. Too weak. Exit 43. Cornell, 18 miles, the GPS blared, its robotic voice too loud in the tense silence. Ethan's knuckles were bone-white on the steering wheel, his foot heavy on the gas. The speedometer needle trembled at 97 miles per hour, the engine roaring like a wounded animal. The tires hydroplaned for a terrifying second before gripping the road again. His tongue's turning blue, Mia gasped. She fumbled for the Tupperware lid they'd been using as an improvised oxygen mask, her fingers shaking as she held it over Atlas's muzzle. The plastic fogged weakly with each exhale. Too faint. Too slow. Atlas's eyes, usually so bright and alert, were half-lidded, glazed. He didn't lift his head when Mia stroked his ears. A sudden, violent cough racked his body. Mia barely had time to react before crimson sprayed across the dashboard, a shocking burst of color against the muted grays of the car's interior. The blood was frothy, tinged with pink, the kind that came from lungs drowning in their own fluid. No, no, no. Mia's voice cracked as she wiped his muzzle with the sleeve of her sweater, the fabric soaking through instantly. Ethan's breath came in sharp bursts. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, then back to the road. "Hold on, buddy," he muttered, though Atlas couldn't hear him over the storm. "Just hold on." The GPS recalculated. "In 500 feet, keep right." Mia's phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Bennett. "If his gums are white, he has minutes, not hours." Her stomach dropped. She pried Atlas's lips back gently. White, all white. "Ethan?" "I know." His voice was rough, fraying at the edges. The Jeep swerved around a slower car, tires screeching. Rain pounded the roof like fists. Atlas's chest hitched, once, twice, then went still. For one heart-stopping second, Mia thought it was over. Then, a weak, shuddering breath. Ethan slammed his palm against the wheel. "Not here," he snarled, his voice breaking. "Not like this." He floored the gas. The Jeep lurched forward, the engine screaming in protest. The speedometer climbed, 98, 99, 100. The world outside blurring into streaks of darkness and rain. Mia pressed her forehead against Atlas's, her tears mixing with the blood on his fur. "You're the bravest boy," she whispered. "Just a little longer. Just—" Another cough. More blood. The GPS announced, "Cornell Veterinary Hospital, 2 miles. 2 miles." Atlas's heartbeat fluttered against her fingertips like a dying bird. Mia closed her eyes and prayed. The automatic doors hissed open, vomiting them into chaos. Cornell's ICU smelled like burnt coffee grounds and the sharp chemical sting of antiseptic, the kind that burned your nostrils and lingered at the back of your throat. The overhead lights flickered at irregular intervals, casting strobing shadows across the team already swarming Atlas's gurney. A resident with sweat-darkened scrubs barked orders into the din. Plasmapheresis at 200, cross-match for type B negative, and get me 500 milliliters of oxyglobin. Now. Machines chirped and whirred, their cords snaking across the floor like live wires. Mia's sneakers stuck slightly to the tiles with each step, some long-dried fluid making them tacky. She reached for Atlas's paw, but a nurse caught her wrist. "You can't touch him during the procedure." The gloves she wore were smeared with something amber-colored. "His blood's basically acid right now." Ethan stood rigid beside her, his arms crossed so tightly his fingers left crescent moons in his own biceps. His eyes never left Atlas, his Atlas, who looked so small beneath the nest of tubes and monitors, his fur shaved in patches to reveal jaundiced skin beneath. Then, a convulsion. Atlas's body arched off the table with a violence that sent a syringe clattering to the floor. The heart monitor erupted in a series of rapid-fire beeps before morphing into one continuous ear-splitting screech. "He's coding!" The crash cart arrived before the words finished echoing. A tech ripped open a package of electrode pads with her teeth, slapping them onto Atlas's chest. The defibrillator charged with a rising whine. "Wee-ee!" like some alien spacecraft powering up. "Clear!" Atlas's body jolted, his limbs flailing like a marionette with cut strings. The monitor showed nothing but a green, unbroken line. Silence. Mia's vision tunneled. The smell of ozone from the defibrillator mixed with the coppery tang of blood. Someone was counting. 1 minute 30 seconds. But the voice sounded underwater. Then, a single, stubborn blip. The flatline stuttered. Blip. A pause. Blip. The resident's gloved hand hovered over the defibrillator paddles. Everyone froze, staring at that erratic green spike like it was the first star in a barren sky. Blip. 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 The rhythm steadied. Weak, but there. The lead vet, a woman with a silver streak in her dark hair like a lightning bolt, let out a breath that fogged her face shield. "Well," she muttered, "that's one for the journals." Ethan made a sound, half laugh, half sob, and pressed his forehead to the observation window. The glass was cool against his skin. Behind him, Mia's knees gave out. She slid down the wall, her fingers laced so tightly together the knuckles blanched white. On the table, Atlas's tail twitched. Just once, as if even unconscious, he knew he'd just stolen back another hour. The sunlight came in slow, like honey dripping through the blinds. It pooled across the tile floor in golden ribbons, warming the toes of Mia's sneakers where they peeked out from beneath the chair. Her neck ached from sleeping upright for the third night in a row. Her cheek still creased from the folded sweatshirt she'd used as a pillow. Somewhere beyond the window, a mockingbird sang its stolen songs, the notes slipping between the steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor. Then, a twitch. Atlas's right front paw, shaved bare for IV lines and speckled with bruises, flexed. Just once. A tiny movement, like a dog dreaming of running. Mia didn't see it. She was lost in the gray place between sleep and waking, where dreams smudged into reality. In her half-dream, she was back in their apartment, and Atlas was a puppy again, knocking over potted plants with his wagging tail. Another twitch. This time, his tail. The very tip, just a tremor, but enough to make the plastic sheet under him crinkle. The sound jolted Mia awake. Her breath caught. She leaned forward, her chair squeaking, her hands hovering over him like she was afraid to hope. "Atlas?" His ear flicked. Not much, just the barest tilt toward her voice. Then, sandpaper. Warm, rough tongue dragging across her elbow where it rested on the bed rail. Once. Twice. Mia's gasp was loud in the quiet room. Ethan, who had been slumped in the other chair with his hood pulled over his face, jerked upright so fast the chair legs screeched. His beard was scruffy, his eyes bloodshot, his hoodie wrinkled from 3 days of wear. Atlas licked Mia's elbow again, his tongue slow but deliberate. His brown eyes, though clouded with medication, were open. alive. Ethan was across the room in 2 strides, his hands cradling Atlas's face, his thumbs stroking the velvety fur behind his ears. "Hey," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Hey, buddy." Atlas's tail thumped weakly against the bed. The door swung open, and Dr. Lim entered, her white coat crisp despite the early hour. She froze mid-step, her clipboard slipping from her fingers and clattering to the floor. "That's not possible." Mia's stomach dropped. "What?" Dr. Lim snatched the blood work report from the foot of the bed, her eyes scanning the numbers. "His RBC count was 12 yesterday. Critical. Now it's..." She blinked. 24. That's not just improvement. That's ... She shook her head, at a loss. Atlas yawned, his pink tongue curling, his dog breath warm and familiar. Kibble and the faint metallic tang of IV fluids. Then, with a grunt, he rolled onto his belly. "No! No, don't!" Mia reached to stop him, but Atlas was already moving. His legs trembled as he pushed himself up, his paws slipping slightly on the plastic sheet. The 4th pole rattled in protest, the bag swinging wildly. 1 step. His front legs shook, but held. 2 steps. His back legs nearly buckled, but he caught himself. 3 steps. And then he was collapsing forward, not in weakness, but purposefully, his weight settling against Ethan's chest with a sigh that smelled like home. Ethan's arms closed around him automatically, his face burying in Atlas's ruff. His shoulders shook once, silently. Mia pressed her palm to Atlas's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of his ribs, the strong, even heartbeat beneath her fingers. Dr. Lim exhaled sharply. "I need to run more tests." But in that moment, with the sunlight spilling over them and Atlas's tail wagging in slow, contented sweeps against the bed, no one cared about tests. Because sometimes miracles didn't need explanations. Sometimes they just needed to be held. The ocean breathed in great salty sighs as Atlas exploded through the shallows, his paws kicking up diamond sprays that hung suspended in the golden hour light. His therapy dog vest, neon orange with Atlas stitched in bold black letters, flapped like a superhero's cape against his damp fur. The vest was frayed at the edges now, the Velcro worn from 3 years of hospital visits where he'd let sick children bury their fingers in his ruff. Mia stood knee-deep in the foam, her sundress stretched taut over the curve of her 7-month belly. The baby kicked, a sharp jab beneath her ribs, as Atlas circled back to her, his muzzle dripping seawater onto her toes. "He herds me like a sheep," she laughed, swatting at his wet snout. Atlas responded by pressing his whole weight against her legs, his body a living barricade between her and the incoming wave. His amber eyes, still bright despite the gray frosting his muzzle, locked onto hers with solemn intensity. "No further, Mom." On the shore, 2-year-old Ellie shrieked with delight as a retreating wave tried to steal her plastic shovel. Ethan lunged, catching it mid-air, with the reflexes of a man who'd spent years retrieving things from Atlas's mischievous jaws. The late afternoon sun gilded the scene, Ellie's chubby fingers clutching fistfuls of Atlas's fur as she wobbled on unsteady legs, the sand clinging to her overalls in sugary clumps. Ethan raised their camera, the old Nikon that had documented every milestone since Atlas's recovery. The shutter clicked, freezing the perfect alchemy of light and love. Atlas mid-leap, his body a black and tan blur against the turquoise water. Sunlight catching the scar on his shoulder, the one that had nearly killed him, turning it molten gold. Ellie's tiny hand fisted in his fur, her mouth a round O of wonder. The shadow of Mia's pregnancy silhouette stretching toward them like a promise. The print would later hang in their hallway, framed beside Atlas's veterinary discharge papers and Ellie's ultrasound photo. As dusk painted the sky in watercolor strokes of lavender and peach, Atlas flopped onto the porch with a contented groan, his paws twitching as he dreamed of chasing seagulls. Fireflies blinked their Morse code through the hydrangeas, their light reflecting in his half-lidded eyes. Inside, the baby monitor crackled to life as Ellie babbled to her stuffed wolf, a gift from Atlas on her first birthday, selected with careful nudges of his nose at the toy store. Mia settled into the rocking chair beside him, her bare feet brushing his flank. The wood creaked a familiar rhythm as she ran her fingers through the thick fur at his neck, finding the hidden spot that still made his back leg thump. "Remember when you used to steal Ethan's socks?" she murmured. Atlas's tail whumped against the deck boards twice. "Remember? Of course I remember." Ethan appeared with 2 mugs of tea, handing one to Mia before sinking onto the steps beside Atlas. His fingers automatically found the velvety notch behind Atlas's right ear, the exact place he'd scratched that very first night in the Walmart parking lot. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Mia guided Ethan's palm to the spot. "Think he'll like her?" Ethan asked, nodding toward Atlas. Atlas lifted his head at the word her, his ears pivoting forward. He sniffed Mia's belly with theatrical solemnity, then licked a long stripe up the stretched fabric before flopping back down with a sigh that said, "Obviously." Later, when the house had settled into its nighttime rhythms, when Ellie's breathing had deepened into sleep and the last firefly had winked out, Atlas padded down the hallway. His nails clicked against the hardwood, the sound as familiar as the grandfather clock's ticking. The nursery door stood ajar. The mobile above the crib spun lazily in the AC breeze, casting star-shaped shadows. Atlas circled 3 times, an ancient ritual, before collapsing onto the baby monitor with a grunt. His steady, rumbling snores filled the room. "I'm here. You're safe. Breathe." Outside, the ocean continued its endless conversation with the shore. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the same moon that had witnessed a dying dog's last chance drive now watched over a full house. The vet had given him 24 hours. He'd given them forever. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked past midnight as Atlas lifted his graying muzzle from Ellie's bedspread. Moonlight pooled around his paws as he moved down the corridor, past the framed gallery of their shared history. The Walmart parking lot Polaroid, his ribs visible through matted fur. The Cornell ICU discharge papers, signed with Mia's tear-smudged signature. The beach photo where salt water sparkled on his scarred shoulder. In the nursery, the new baby stirred. Atlas's nails clicked against the hardwood as he circled the crib 3 times, an ancient ritual, before settling onto the braided rug with a contented sigh. His breathing synced with the infant's, creating a lullaby of inhale, the scent of powder and possibility. Exhale, warm dog breath fogging the crib bars. Outside, the same stars that had witnessed his desperate midnight race now watched over this quiet vigil. The vet's words echoed across the years. 24 hours. But here in the dark, with his family's heartbeats surrounding him, time had stretched into something miraculous. He'd been given a single day. He'd returned it as a lifetime of mornings, of stolen bacon and wagging wake-up calls, of toddlers giggling into his fur, of warm hands that would never let him drown. The baby sighed in her sleep. Atlas rested his chin on the crib's edge, his tail thumping once against the floor. Some gifts couldn't be measured in hours.